right, team. How you doing? Coach Dana Cavalea here with you on the Becoming a Champion show. And today I sat down with Scott Dettman, the CEO of the American company Avenica. He talks to us about his journey. He's in his early 30s. He's already the CEO of a big company, leading the charge and helping people achieve their dreams. So I want you to sit down. I want you to enjoy this episode. There's so much learning to be had. And Scott shares his journey with us, how he got started, how he climbed the ranks, some of the struggles he had, and also a lot of the successes. He talks about leadership and what it takes to win. He brings his sports attitude, sports mentality, and sports mindset to being a great leader. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Sit back and enjoy it. And if you do, like I always say, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and give us a share on YouTube. And enjoy the episode with Scott Dettman, CEO of Avenica. Scott, how we doing? How's it going?
Good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I always appreciate young CEOs because I know that there's a lot that goes into A, being a CEO, but B, being a young CEO. So I wanted to talk about your journey today. I think a lot of people out there could relate to or are aspiring to really be in the position that you're in, and somebody like you would give them something to relate to, or be somebody for them to relate to. So I wanted to ask you, just kicking off, how did you get in the position that you're in?
Well, I'm sure luck had something to do with. No, I'm just kidding. I think when I think about sort of my story and how I've gotten to where I am, I think a lot of it comes down to having a commitment to personal growth every day, right?
Mm.
Finding ways, the little ways every single day to get better, to advance, to push myself further. I think it's actually, I think one of your habits. I despise losing.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I actually enjoy winning. I just hate losing that much. And so I look at almost everything as a competition, and I compete with myself. But I look for ways every day to get better, and I take risks, and I believe in myself, and there's a lot of things that go into it. It's sort of it's a culmination of things, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's a willingness to believe in yourself and to push to advance every single day. That's really the key.
Yeah, no, I love that. I talk about that in my book. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose? And I actually got that from Derek Jeter, and he's like, listen, you don't want people on your team that love to win. Everybody loves to win, but who hates to lose? Those are the people that are going to work harder, work longer, and they're playing for something totally different,
Yeah. It's like, playing for existence as opposed to, celebration or something.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
with that, I wanted to ask this for you, you identified that. What is it that you're trying to prove to yourself, and even to maybe even others?
Yeah, I'm a poor kid who grew up on the south side of Milwaukee, right? So I had parents that were, first generation college students, but they didn't get their degrees till later in life. And so they struggled to connect the dots to economic prosperity. And so for me, there's always been a little bit of this chip on my shoulder about sort of being the outsider and finding a way to advance. I had a lot of health issues as a kid as well. So I think that kind of drove me to want to be successful in sports. I played football in college. And I think a lot of it has just always been this desire to make my mark and to prove that I was worthy. I guess it's sort of weird to say out loud, but I think everyone has something that they're trying to prove, has something inside them that drives them. And it's not always the prettiest thing. It's not always the best thing in the world, but it's learning to harness that and tap into it and not let it consume you, but to use it as fuel. I think is incredibly important, and it could be game changing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that. It can overtake them and just take them down. Where, like you said, you use it as fuel, which is everything, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the key, and that's not something that comes naturally. It's something that takes time, a lifetime often to kind of get to. But and I'm not perfect. I'm working on it every day. I mean, I struggle with it just thinking about the transitions of, I'm working from home and the transitions of leaving my office and, seeing my family and going from one mode to the next. There's a lot of transitions that go into that. And trying to be the best at the best that I can be at all of those things, and not sacrificing, one for the other. That's really important as well.
Yeah. And Scott, I wanted to ask you this. How old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay. So you're a 33-year-old CEO. And for those of us that don't know the company, and I want to say Avenica.
Yep. You got it.
How many people are you leading on that team?
So we currently have about 50 full-time employees, but then we bill out consultants as well. That number is over 100 to 150 at any given time. Sometimes as high as 200 or 300.
Yeah. So you're 33 years old and you're leading a few hundred people, and I'm guessing many of them have been, doing what they do for longer than you have, and they're probably quite a bit older than you.
Sometimes, yeah, not always, but sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So how have you dealt with that? Because some people might say, hey, I'm young in the company, and I have a hard time managing some older people because I can't get out of my own way. It's not them, it's me.
Yeah, I think I've always been exposed to being around people that are older than me, and I think I've always taken the track that there's a lot I can learn from everyone, right? So whether somebody is, 2 years old or 200 years old, they've got a story and they've got value to add. I believe that 100%. No matter what they do or where they work or how much education they have, everyone has value. Everyone has something you can learn from them. And so I first, I seek out mentors. I've always sought out mentors. I look to learn as much as I can from every person I interact with. And look, to use a baseball quote or baseball reference, I let my bat do the talking, right? Hank Aaron reference. I'm a Milwaukee guy, so Milwaukee Braves, near and dear to my heart.
Oh yeah.
But I think thinking about showing up every day, doing the work, not demanding respect, earning it, right? And holding yourself to a different standard. And I've never really thought a ton about like how my age compares to somebody else's age. I've just looked at it as I've got a role to play. I've got value to add. I'm here to work. I'm here to make the team better. And whether that means taking the garbage out and making coffee or doing big deals and leading teams, whatever that looks like, I'm game. Right. Yeah. And I think if you take that approach and take that mindset, you earn respect and you earn credibility. And I had a coach that used to say, we earn credibility in droplets, but we lose it in bucket loads. Yep. And I think that's really true. You have to do all the little things right. And that's how you earn that credibility and you earn that trust and that respect.
Yeah, no, I love it. I started with the Yankees at 19. So being younger, right? You have a choice to say, hey, these players, they're older than me, they make more money than me, or you say, hey, I have a job to do, and that job is to make these people better. And that's for you. That's the job, right? Grow the company, right. Grow your people, grow yourself.
Yep.
And that's I would think that's where that athlete mentality really comes into play, because you're all about getting better. That's all we know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there is no, I think anyone that's been an athlete, there's never a shortage of room for improvement. I don't care if you're, Derek Jeter or Michael Jordan, right? Like there's always room to grow. There's always more you can achieve. There's always another season. There's always a new challenge, new obstacles. And so, I regularly, at least once a month, I have a reminder on my calendar to kind of spend a little bit of time asking myself the question of like, how am I challenging myself? How am I getting better today? If you're not getting better, you're moving backwards, right? And so it's, I need to be advancing. I need to be getting better at this, getting better at that. And that is, I'll be honest with you, one of the hardest things about being in a role like mine is there's not enough feedback, right? You get praise and credit and different things. And, but if you really surround yourself with the right team, I've got a lot of great teammates, a lot of great partners that I sort of force them to give me feedback because I need it. I want to know how I can get better. I want to, it's like watching film. I want to get better every day.
Yeah. And it's a great quality. I work with a lot of CEOs and in coaching them, we start to find out that they feel like they're on an island. And everybody wants to be the CEO, but it takes a certain mentality to be that person.
Yeah, I used to kind of laugh at people that would say like, "Oh, it's lonely at the top" and things like that. But there's some truth to it, right? There absolutely some truth to it, and there's a lot of there's a lot on your shoulders. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have it any other way. I
Yeah.
like that pressure. I feel the most alive when I've got the sort of the ball in my hands with the game on the line.
Yeah.
But it's not easy, but it shouldn't be, right? I mean, it shouldn't be easy, because if it was easy, everybody else would do it too. But it's there is pressure. There's a lot of scrutiny. And it's isolating in a way, because nobody else really kind of understands what your perspective is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to make the hard decisions, and ultimately too, there's a lot that you're responsible for, including all of those people that make up the organization. And for some people, it's also the folks that are invested in the organization. So
yeah,
there's a lot of people to answer to, and it's like, who does the CEO talk to? Because you also have to, as open as you want to be, sometimes you can't be. So you're forced to
right.
problem solve a lot in your own mind, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to being a CEO, I think a lot of people have this view that you've got this big company of all these people working for you or reporting to you, and really it's the opposite of that. I wake up every day and I think about, how am I serving my team? How am I making sure that the people in the organization are taken care of and have what they need and are feeling supported and safe and taken care of, because their families are relying on them, right? And so there's an exponential factor that weighs on that, and so it's really, yeah. I always think of it as I work for them. That's my deal, and I've never felt like I've had so many managers in my life as I did when I became a CEO. But it's good, and it's for the right reasons, right? And I think if I had a different mindset, that it wouldn't be as rewarding as it is.
Yeah, no, I could totally see that. Who would you say in your career has been, one of the most influential people?
I mean,
I know there's a lot.
There have been many. One of the individuals at the prior organization I worked at prior to coming to Avenica, was the COO, a guy by the name of Daryl Green, and not the former football player Daryl Green, different guy, but Daryl, from a very sort of early stage in my career, this organization sort of took me under his wing and kind of kept his eye on me, and he challenged me, and he expected a lot of me, but he gave me opportunities, he opened doors, and for me, that's what it's always been about. Is I want, I need the expectation to perform, but then also need you need to get on the field, you need the at bats, you need the opportunities, and for so many people, those opportunities are few and far between, or they just they don't know where to find them, and finding those opportunities and finding that network is incredibly important. And part of what we do at Avenica is we try to provide that bridge for people and provide that network and provide that that access to opportunity, so that the people that are ambitious and are high potential can really take advantage of that and run with it. But I learned a lot from Daryl. I also had a quarterback coach coming up that I used to go to his camps, and then I worked for him for a short while, by the name of Jeff Trickey. Okay. He coached camps nationally, and I learned a great deal about what it means to just show up as a leader every day and to lead from a place of core values, and to truly kind of live this idea that you're promoting every single day. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for him as an individual. He's retired now. Both men are retired now, but learned a great deal from both of them.
Now they're your board members. Personal board members, right?
That's right.
That's cool.
That's
so
right.
Scott, where did you go to college?
I went to I did my undergraduate degree at Valparaiso University, so Valpo, and then did my graduate work at UW Milwaukee, so University of Wisconsin Milwaukee.
Okay, cool. So you played football at Valparaiso.
I did. Yep. I was a quarterback, not my whole time in college, but initially I had an injury that sidelined me towards the end. But
okay.
I was a quarterback there.
How much of your sports experience and knowledge and team building do you bring to your day to day? Like, do you infuse a sports culture into Avenica naturally or intentionally?
Yeah, I think so. I probably think I do it less than I probably actually do.
Yeah.
But when I think about leadership, I first learned and just kind of got thrust into leadership as a freshman in high school. Walking into a varsity huddle, and looking at guys. I was 14, probably 5'5", 130 pounds soaking wet, and I'm looking at these massive human beings that are in some cases 5 years older than me, and I'm supposed to be sitting here calling the play, right? And so like I learned a lot about just sort of earning respect and doing the right thing, but also there's this notion of team that I think is just incredibly important, and it's easy for people to get really fixated on what they do and doing their role and just performing and trying to think about it in that context. But at Avenica, we, as one of our core values, is really trying to find ways to celebrate the success of other people. So we compete like crazy, but in the same way that like a family does, right? So like my kids will compete against each other, relentlessly, but when it comes down to it, they're on Team Dettman, right? And they know that, and they support that, and they stand up for each other, and they look out for each other. And that's the kind of culture that we build at Avenica as well, is that, we take care of our people. We're all on the same team. We can compete internally, but really we're all on the same team fighting the battle, externally. But part of it is too, sports are fun, right?
Yeah.
And so we try to make it fun. We try to, keep it loose, but we treat it like a big family, which every great team I've ever been on is felt like a family. It's felt like something bigger that you're part of. And that's what we're always striving for.
Yeah. And the great teams, I always say, you don't have to force it.
Right.
It just becomes, when you get the right people on the team, it becomes this thriving culture.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time on that and on sort of thinking about what does our genetic code look like? What are our core values? Who are we? And are these people a good fit from a core values perspective? And, you look at, great teams like, the Patriots and different things, like they've had ingredients that they're pulling in and they're plugging people in and replacing people. And that's been probably a major key. They've had some really great players too, but great players can thrive at an even higher level if they're in a unit and part of a thriving system.
Yeah. And great players want to come to an organization and a system that's thriving and has those key components, right?
Absolutely. Well, and you mentioned Derek Jeter. I mean, he's somebody who, as an athlete, he's sort of like the statesman athlete, right? Kind of this epitome of what it means to be a leader, and to kind of find a way to get the job done, and you need those kinds of players throughout an organization at different levels that are going to be examples of the kind of leadership and of the kind of culture you want to create, because I always say culture is highly local, right? It's about the team, and then that team being part of a larger team. And so if you mess it up at any level, the whole thing is shot. And so you need to get it right at every level. So you need a lot of leaders.
Yeah, no, totally. I find it interesting with you because, again, not to keep going back to, well, you're a younger CEO, but I think it's a pretty admirable thing. I mean, I think it's very impressive. And I think a lot of people listening to this show will also find that impressive as well. But I'd love to go back to just even your journey as you were coming up the ranks. You finish school. Like, what does your path look like prior to getting to this point?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's careers don't really work in a linear fashion like they may have used to. So my undergraduate degree was in political science. And, I didn't have a ton of work experience, didn't do any sort of like internships or anything like that. But I always had this belief in myself that, like, if I could just get a chance, if I could get an audience, I could sort of make my case and I would land something. But, I had the great fortune of graduating from college in 2009, which was at the height of the Great Recession. And
the year the Yankees won the World Series.
That's right. There you go. But as I was coming out of school with a degree in political science, which was already probably not the most coveted degree on the planet, and in a time with rising unemployment and a lot of uncertainty, I applied for probably 400, 500 jobs, and I got one interview. And so I knew that and that's all I needed, right? I was like, I had this mindset, like, I just need one interview, one shot. And that interview turned out to be a whole different sort of story. But that's where it started. And that's kind of where I came out. And so I've always had this mindset of like, I need to kind of over prepare and think about this as like, I get one shot at this thing, one crack, and I need to come through. And applying some of that pressure, I think, has been beneficial. So,
yeah. So did you get the job?
I did. Well, so it's an interesting story. So I got a job at the company. But so I walked into, I scraped together every penny I had and went out and bought some sort of cheap suit, right? It was like, I need to have a suit and tie. I need to be ready to go. So I walk in, I'm ready, I'm prepared. I walk in, and in the lobby, there's like 15 other people all dressed like me. My first thought was, oh man, this is like one opening and there are 15 of us all, competing for the same thing. So my first thought is, okay, how do I make myself different? How do I be competitively different? How do I be remembered? And so when it was finally my time, I got escorted in, and I was sat down to meet with the CEO. I'm ready. I'm like, okay, I've got this. And the first thing he says to me is, so I'm not actually considering you for this role. I actually brought you in because I wanted to tell you that as a political science major, you have no business applying for a marketing role, because it was a marketing job. Because again, I was casting a pretty wide net at this point.
Why not?
Yeah. And he was like, so, you need to understand that based on what you've done and what you study, you just have no business even applying for a job like this. So I'm trying to help you by, so trying to let me down easy and coach me a little bit at the same time. But again, I was not going to lose an opportunity. I had an audience. And so I said, respectfully, I disagree with that. I've spent my entire life marketing, and I've been marketing myself, and here's how, and here's why, and here's what I've done. And I just went, and I started to talk about it, the experiences that I had had, and the way I grew up, and what I had accomplished in different things. And I probably talked for 2 or 3 minutes, and I probably would have just kept talking, until I ran out of breath. But he was like, okay, all right. He's like, I'm convinced. He was like, but I don't want to hire you for this job. I've got a better one for you. Come back tomorrow. We'll talk about it. Cool. So he brought me back in the next day, and he was starting a new division, and sort of an internal startup. And he was looking for somebody to run it, and he gave me a shot. So he brought me in. I was probably 22 years old or something, and was like, here, go figure this out. I mean, I can't tell you, I had never taken a business course in my life. And here I was kind of being put in charge of like running this sort of business. And I would sometimes have to like go back to my desk and Google certain words, because I just didn't know, I hadn't heard those words or phrases before. But again, I think I got there earliest, I left latest. I learned everything I could. I put in the work, and it turned out well. But yeah, that was my first gig right out of school.
That's cool. How long did you end up staying there?
Just a couple years, and then I decided to go back to graduate school and pursue more of like a kind of a STEM focus. I got into data science at that point, but that was a really great just sort of first exposure to the business world and leading people in that context. And similarly, had people reporting to me that were older than me and more experienced and knew a lot more than I did.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
So if we're playing out that timeline a little bit, you get that gig, you go back to school. I mean, what was that? Maybe like 8 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So from
8, 9, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a period of time, let's say 8 years, you went from a guy that was, trying to create differentiation in a job interview to going back to school to now, somebody or a group of folks trusting you to run this company.
Yep.
How the hell does that happen?
I fooled some people. No, I'm just, I
keep tricking them, right? No.
Yeah, that's right. Just, act as if you have faith.
Yeah.
No, I think, a big part of it was I sort of operated on a different timeline, I think, than other people, in part because I once I got out of graduate school, I started working before I was done with graduate school, and started to kind of piece these things together. So while in graduate school and teaching, I was working full time as well. So I was a full time student, full time teacher, and full time employee, and I was a new dad at the same time. So
wow, very cool.
I had a lot of this going on, but at the same time, my view has always been that we're all given the same 24 hours. It's just we just have a choice on how we're going to use it. And so I didn't waste time doing things that weren't in line with what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And so I was really efficient, and I had a plan. And that to me has always been really critical, is thinking about the consistent day to day inputs and what we're doing every single day to kind of get us to where we want to go. And through that time period, I think going through that and having all of these different things I'm trying to do at the same time, and trying to be successful in all of them, it really sort of changed my perspective on what I was capable of, right? And sort of helped me reframe. And so I was the first one to sort of raise my hand when a new project came up, or when there was a new opportunity. And part of my rule is, once every few months, I try to do something that scares me, right? I mean, muscles only grow when they tear and bleed, right? And so you need to have some pain, you need to have some discomfort. And so I'm a glutton for punishment in some ways, but when opportunities came up to go lead this team or run that team or learn this or spend more time doing this, I just jumped at it, and I just wanted to get better every single day. And it wasn't about making more or advancing to a new title. It was about the developmental sort of opus that I was building to kind of pull all the right pieces together. And in a fairly short period of time, I gained a lot of experience doing a lot of different things, that really helped propel me into being in a position of kind of general management and business leadership pretty early. And then I think because I had that breadth of experience, and I took that same sort of work ethic, approach, it really helped me be successful quickly in that space.
Yeah, no, I love that. I believe, as you're telling this story, I just hear constant differentiation through work ethic, through saying yes, to saying, hey, you know what? I'm not focused on what everybody else is focused on: title, compensation, how much time off I'm going to get, benefits package. That is what it is. I'm here to get better, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I think that's something that many people have lost today. And then they say, well, they try to almost manufacture their next move, but they're not willing to do those things.
Right. Yeah. And I think some of that comes back down to, some of the work ethic I learned, where I grew up, and just seeing that firsthand, people working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, doing whatever they had to do, hustling to kind of get by. And part of it too is there's, I have an expectation of myself to perform and to perform at a high level, but there's never been this sense of what I deserve, if that makes sense. I don't really look at it and think, oh, I'm entitled to this, or this is mine. It's always been that I'm going to work for that and I'm going to earn it. Yeah. And I want to know that I've earned it. Right. And so I look at, being a parent, and, if I'm going to be a good dad, that means I'm going to be changing diapers and playing Barbies and, getting up in the middle of the night and whatever it takes. Right. But I'm going to be the best at this that I could possibly be. And all of that is really important. But you're absolutely right. It's about that pursuit of differentiation through the thing I can control, which is how hard I work.
Yeah. I mean, the word that comes to mind as you're saying all this is gamer. I'm a gamer. I'm in.
Yeah. I'm game. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome. But how do you talked about expectations. You have these expectations for yourself. You're willing to do the work. How do you avoid the pressure that comes with expectations and even timelines?
I've always viewed, so my wife gives me a hard time about this, because I always say I don't really believe in stress, right? I think stress comes from avoided pressure, right? And I think pressure is a good thing. Pressure is what elevates performance. It's what it's what, creates diamonds. It's what it generates, positive growth. And so I've always looked at pressure as is energy, as like this form of directed, focused energy that was going to make me better and make me perform. And I mean, pressure, it's like when the lights are on, like, people are watching, right? And that's my time to shine, right? That's my time to step up, because it's the stuff I did all the days before when no one else was watching, right? It's running stadium stairs, or, learning this new skill, or researching something that nobody else is spending time doing, or, just trying to get better every day, and thinking about all the little ways to get better. When the lights come on and it's game time, I didn't have any, and I've never really had any doubt that, like, this is my time to shine, because I've put in all the work beforehand. I knew going into a game that I was ready, right? And it's always, for me, it's always been this, if anything, there's like this constant anxiety that, like, the moment's going to come up and I won't be ready. So I need to do the work today, right? I need to get it done today, because tomorrow that opportunity might show up. And I've always defined luck as, when hard work meets opportunity. And so if I'm doing that work every single day, consistently doing that, when that opportunity arises, I better be ready to take advantage of it and be the first one to raise my hand. So,
so when you think of the word pressure, is it positive or negative?
Oh, it's 100% positive.
See, I think that's the biggest difference. I love that you said that, because I just think many people, they feel this pressure and they attach a negative to it.
Yeah.
And I always felt that that's one of the biggest issues. The same thing with, like, fear of the unknown. It's like, well, in the unknown is great possibility, not always negative. I mean,
yeah. That's where, that's the promise of what's next in discovery and everything. It exists in the unknown. Yeah, it can be a little scary not knowing what happens next, but, like, that's where life happens, right? That's where excitement happens. It's like, do you want to watch a movie that you know exactly how it's going to end? No, some suspense is good, right? That's part of the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of folks out there. I come across many different people based on what I do in coaching, that some of them feel stuck. They feel uninspired. What would you say somebody can do to get past that situation?
I think inspiration it has to start from within, right? You have to be sort of willing to be inspired first and foremost. And then I think you have to find, like, the little things, or the little, sometimes ridiculous things even, that work for you. One of my things is I start each day kind of with this notion. One of the first thoughts I sort of force myself to have every single day is that something good is going to happen today, because I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make something good happen today. And so I'm excited to see what that is. Let's go find it. Right. So, like, that's where I start. And so I have a lot of, it can be irritating to my family members at times, but I've got a lot of excitement and energy in the morning, and I'm ready to rock and roll, because it's like, hey, let's go open this present, right? Like, this is going to be good. But then also, there are days like any other person where, it's you're a little tired, or you're a little bit beaten down from other things, and it's a little bit of a challenge. And there are times where I felt a little bit stuck, but I've always looked at that as sort of, it's like a plateau, right? It's like, okay, if I'm stuck, that just means that I'm not challenging myself enough. I'm not putting in enough. And instead of thinking about what forces contributed to making me feel stuck, I'm going to look inside and figure out how I unstuck myself. Right. Yeah. So, like, little things, even just, identifying, certain music. I mean, athletes use things like music all the time, but, like, I do this just, even before a big meeting or something, some of the music that I can throw on in my headphones and just kind of get in the right mindset, and just sort of trick myself into believing that I've got this, right? And getting in that mindset, and thinking of it as a competition, thinking of it as something that you've got something to prove. And, I feel like, being stuck or coming up against obstacles or barriers, a lot of times the only things that can contain us are the walls that we build ourselves, right? And so everyone has different things they're working on and working against, for sure. But I think, if you're truly feeling stuck, there's something that's going on that you're contributing to that, right? It's a mindset, because you're not literally stuck. You're not in quicksand. And if you are, that's a different situation. And I don't know how to help you in that regard. But if you're just feeling that way, it's a feeling, right? And the feeling can change. So do something to change it. And oftentimes that can be working with somebody else. Seek people out that are doing the things that you want to do, and immerse yourself in them. I mean, when I was an athlete, I wanted to be where all the best players were. I wanted to work out with the strongest guys. I wanted to run sprints with the fastest guys. I wanted to always be pushing myself and elevating myself against the very best of the best, because you don't get better by comparing yourself to the lowest common denominator. You have to raise the bar. And that may mean you lose for a while, right? I mean, I know growing up, like the guys I played sports with were all 4 or 5 years older than me. I was always the little one. I was always the one who was losing. But you develop this deep distaste for losing that you realize you're never going back to that. And when it's time to compete against people at your own level, it's almost easy at that point, because you've been fighting. It's like playing a game with ankle weights on or something, right? Then you take them off and you feel like you can fly.
Yeah. It's that challenge. I was talking to a CEO the other day, and he said, for me, a change in my career was when I decided to move to the Upper East Side of New York City from where I was. I was in a smaller apartment, and I said, I'm going to go, to this affluent area where there's more people that are in the position that I want to be in. And he said, I had to step up, and everything changed. We couldn't quite afford it when we first got there, but we figured out how to afford it because we never wanted to go back to where we were.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I talk about that. And she's, way smarter than me, and probably, the secret to anything I've achieved. But part of it is, kind of pursuing and acting in a way, based on what you're trying to create. Right. Yeah. So, I used to, my first couple of jobs, I wore a suit and tie to work every single day. And, walking around a big corporation wearing a suit and tie every day when nobody else did, some of the executives did, but nobody else in between did. And I caught flack from some of my managers and leaders, but those executives, when they saw this, 25-year-old kid walking around, wearing probably not a very expensive suit, but wearing a suit and tie nonetheless, they noticed, because I was dressing for the role that I wanted, not the role that I had that day. Right. And so I've always made it very clear and sort of announced my intentions. I think too often people hide some of their ambition, or they sort of, compartmentalize it. I've always been very upfront and bold about it, and just said, people may disagree, or they may tell me why I can't, but in my vocabulary, can't just means won't try. Yeah. And so I've just, I think announcing those intentions and being bold about it, and just being willing to be the one who's, the people look at and point at and say, look at that guy. He's walking around. Who does he think he is? Yeah. And, that's the guy that becomes CEO, because he's working on it at 25.
Yeah. And once again, differentiation, which seems to be, again, it's that common theme. I had Rudy on the show 2 days ago, and he was talking a lot about that. Just, you got to go for it. Whatever it is, you got to go for it. Don't worry about everybody else and what they think. You got to go for it. And it's the same thing, it's you got a great book in front of you. Maybe it's called Differentiation, or Differentiate Yourself. But it sounds like, again, even in terms of dress, in that moment, it was the same thing. Scott, I wanted to get just into a little bit of your daily habits and routines that you use to keep you centered and keep you focused and keep you elevating your game. What are some of the things that you find to be very helpful for you mentally and physically?
Yeah, so I think, physically, I need to move every day, right? I need to get some sort of physical activity. I need, whether that's, hopping on, my Peloton, or chasing my kids around, or just moving around and cleaning up the house, whatever it is. I need to get up and move and get the blood flowing. Just sort of being physical in some way. But, I think some of the mental stuff, and this is physical, I guess, as well, but I meditate almost every day, probably every day. And I do so at the beginning of the day, and then often at the end of the day, and sometimes in the middle as well, because I really try to focus in, try to center myself, kind of focus in on my breathing, and to visualize if I'm being the man that everyone thinks I already am, right? If I'm living up to that and I'm being this guy that I want to be, then what does that look like? How am I entering meetings? How am I approaching conversations? How am I dealing with my team? How am I going into this setting of being a dad or being, a neighbor or a husband? Yeah. And I really try to visualize. I use visualization a lot, and just, allowing myself to kind of, I use meditation as a way to sort of to kind of channel energy, if that makes sense, because you just referenced it, the kind of don't worry about what everybody else says, just go for it. If you can focus in on the task at hand and what you're trying to accomplish, that's pivotal, right? People waste so much energy going, all these different directions, doing things that are not productive. And so I really try to focus in and think about what do I need to achieve? What do I need to accomplish? And I do that, on a daily basis. And that really kind of centers me and gives me focus. And the other thing and again, I don't know if this is a daily habit necessarily, but I try to do the hardest things first. Yeah. Right. So like if there's stuff that I'm kind of dreading, or stuff that I feel like, oh, this is going to be hard or difficult, I make sure I knock that out first thing, because, if you climb it's like, again, I think of it in the way that I used to think about workouts, right? You go into the weight room and it's leg day, and you're doing, squats or power cleans or something. And that it's just going to tax you, right? Why would you ever wait to do that last? Yeah. Right. So I start with that. I start with the hardest part, the heaviest weight, because after I do that, you get some adrenaline, you get some momentum, and the rest of the day, you just take on more and you achieve more. And so I've always kind of had that approach of, don't avoid it, don't run from it, just, find the thing you're scared of. I think you refer to this in some of your work as kind of go confront that bully. Yeah. Right.
You're going to knock the bully out.
Go find them, seek them out, and go take care of that, first thing.
Yeah. Scott, when you meditate, because I've come across many different leaders. Some of them are very against meditation. They don't like it. Others are very, very into it. But it sounds like for you, you're meditating, but are you trying to turn your brain off? Or it sounds like you're using it as more of a centering tool and combining visualization with it.
Yeah. I mean, I probably call it meditating because I don't know what else to call it, but that's exactly it. It's a focusing activity. It's a centering activity. It's getting myself ready. It's like the quiet before the calm before the storm. Yeah. Right. And I use that as my means to kind of get into the right mindset more so than anything else.
Yeah. I love that. It's so important. So many times, like when you study people's schedules, they go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and they don't actually have that intentional reset or that time where they set themselves and say, hey, even just without the full meditation, but hey, I'm going to go into this and this is my intention for this. Right. I'm going to go rock this, and having that moment with themselves to get the outcome that they desire.
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching something about Bill Gates recently, and he said, busy is the new stupid. And I don't know if I completely agree with that, but at the same time, there's a lot of truth in that, right? If we overbook ourselves, so often people do that to kind of create this feeling of adding value, right? Mm-hmm. And if I'm booked every single second of the day, there's no way I'm ever actually adding value, right? I need to go into every conversation with a plan, with an idea of the value I want to create, and with knowledge of what I'm looking to do. I mean, I usually, whether it's early in the morning or in the evening before, I make sure that I review my schedule for the next day, sometimes the next couple of days. And I make sure that anything I need to know, anything I need to be well versed on, I kind of create a little booklet for myself. And I just think about, what do I need to know so that I'm the person in that meeting that has the answers, not the questions, right? Yeah. And is ready to go. And that's really important.
Yeah, no, I love that. I have a gentleman that I work with said, it's the old failing to plan is planning to fail. Yeah. And then I have another guy I work with in private equity, and I love this saying. He says, high knowledge leads to high conviction.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, again, you review your schedule, and then you prepare for the things that are on the schedule that you need to prepare for. So you're coming in with knowledge, which gives you conviction. And when you combine that with the centering and the vision, you're an offensive player.
Right. Yeah. And part of it is, as the CEO, I don't have I don't have a lifeline that I get to dial up and say, hey, what do you think? Where do we go? People are going to be looking to me to make that call. And so I go into every conversation with an open mind. I'm more than happy to take in other ideas and suggestions. And, I try to surround myself with people that are smarter than me, but I need to at least have a basis of understanding of what they're talking about. So when they're bringing those suggestions and recommendations, that I can hear them authentically, I take it all in, and I can make an assessment of the situation. So it's a mixture of the two, right? So you have to have that conviction and that knowledge, but I also think going into it with an understanding of you can't possibly know everything, right? So you need to surround yourself with other good players, right? With other people that if you think about like in a baseball context, I grew up playing shortstop, and so like I had to have a second baseman that I really, really trusted, and a first baseman that I really, really trusted, because if you're trying to spin a double play, you need to be able to do that without looking, right? It's instinct, but you need to have a lot of trust there. So that's key.
Yeah, I love that. So I call this the Becoming a Champion show, because I feel like we're all on our journey to become our champion self. I love the word. I've always loved the word. Most athletes love the word, but I want to know, what does the word champion mean to you?
I mean, I feel something even when I hear it or say it. But I mean, to me, it means the best, right? It means the best version of ourselves. It means the person that is going to go the extra mile and do whatever it takes. It doesn't always mean the person who wins every single time, but to be a champion, it's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. It's a choice every single day. And I actually, I sometimes will like listen to music in the morning as I'm like, making my coffee and kind of getting going. And one of the songs I listen to sometimes is "Heart of a Champion" by Nelly, right? And there's a lot in that. My wife makes fun of me because I always say I use the line, "I've got that can't stop, won't stop in my veins." And that to me has being a champion is about the choices you make every single day. It's about doing the little things, and it's about conquering the things that you're afraid of, the things that are hard, the things that are difficult. And if you do all those little things right, the big things take care of themselves, right? The big wins, the big deals, the big titles, the big money, all of that stuff happens only because you have that champion mindset every single day in everything that you're doing. And that to me, when you think about it, like I'm not great at celebrating when I achieve things, right? To me, when I was offered this job of CEO, a lot of people, I actually ran into a friend who was like, "Oh, see, now you made it." Right. So, congrats, you did it. And I'm like, no, this is where it starts.
It's just starting.
Like now the work starts. Like I'm getting to work, and I was working days and weeks before I ever, stepped into the role, because I wanted to be ready, but it's sort of enjoying the pain of preparation and thinking of it that way. When I think about being a champion, it kind of ties all of that together.
Yeah, no, I love that, Scott. That's awesome, man. I think there's going to be a lot of people that extract a lot of value from this, and that needed to hear this message from you. So
thank you.
Very, very, very cool. So thank you.
This was a lot of fun. I appreciate the chance to chat, and would love to again at some point.
Team, I hope you enjoyed that great episode with Scott Dettman. I know I did. I love when sports guys go into business and they bring that attitude, that relentless spirit with them. And they have such an openness, a positivity, and they're gamers. They're gamers as leaders. They're willing to jump in the trench and help their people out. And that's what Scott's doing for Avenica. And this was a great episode with tremendous lessons. And you see what makes him tick. You see what motivates him. He came from really nothing, in Milwaukee, and found his way to the top of the Avenica organization as CEO. You can do the same. You can make it happen. And you got to remember that. Always make it happen. Don't wait. Make it happen. That's my lesson for you. And I know Scott would agree. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, give us a like, give us a share, and I will see you next week with another great episode of the Becoming a Champion show. See ya.